Hey, welcome to the channel. It's Jack, the muscle and mobility maker with Stronghold Strength and Conditioning. And today, we're going to be talking about the 3 pillars that you need to address when you're trying to heal any old injuries. But before we get into it, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine. And it doesn't get better than that. So take advantage of it. Ready? Let's go ahead and dive into this one. All right, like I said, today I'm going to be taking you through the general formula of how to help heal any old injuries that you might still be struggling with. Now, this comes from a question that I received, so I wanted to make sure I addressed it in detail here. And the thing that we want to do is make sure that we're covering 3 key pillars to ensure that we're helping give our body the best chance to recover that injury fully. Now, will that ensure that we get back to a full 100%? Maybe, maybe not. That's something I cannot guarantee here, obviously, but it will give you the best shot at doing so if you take these steps and put them all together properly so that you can ensure that you're hitting all the key pieces that you need to really normalize that movement again that your body's supposed to have there. So we're going to be giving you those 3 pillars to work from here and probably some bonus information. With a lot of talking from me today, I'll try and take you through it quickly and concisely with all that information. Ready? Let's go ahead and dive into pillar number 1. The very first place that we want to begin when we're trying to restore or recover from an old injury is addressing the joints. So we want to be sure that we're addressing, first of all, the joint that is closest to that site of injury. Maybe it was the joint itself that suffered the injury, so it's very local to a specific joint, or maybe it was between joints. So we want to make sure, first of all, that we address the prioritized area, that joint that was specifically injured if it was closest to a joint in the first place. So that is our main focus. From there, we also want to ensure that the joints around that, above and below, are also functioning to their fullest so that this is taking extra load and stress off of that joint that is in between there. So we have to make sure that everything along that system is functioning the way that it should, in a manner that it should. When we talk about addressing the joint, what we're looking at is making sure the joint has proper articulation so that the joint is really moving well over the other bone that it's connected with, or bones that it's connected with, and that it is properly moving in the joint capsule itself. We also want to make sure that that joint has space to work in that area. So we want enough space that, again, that there's not compression of those joints on one another causing issues there. And this can also deal with the position of the joint. So one thing that I like to use to make that happen, to really help with the joint mechanics, is a band, a pull-up band. And this is a great way that we can start to use a pull-up band to address the joint itself and help it articulate better. So these are called banded distractions. Banded distractions are going to, again, allow you to, 1, make sure the joint is having enough room to work in there. It's also making sure that the joint is in a good position when you place it there. And then it is ensuring that that capsule is functioning the way that it should, with some stability as well. So this is one of the best ways that we can actually address the joints. And remember, first of all, we want to start with the joint local to the site of the pain. It's important that we know the movements that that joint should have. So if it's my knee, flexion, extension, and a bit of rotation, actually. If it's, my scapula, it's going to have elevation, depression, protraction, retraction, upward rotation, and downward rotation. So we need to know the movements that that joint should have, and we need to identify which movements are painful for us. And that will help guide us in restoring that joint function. The second pillar that we want to be addressing is the soft tissues directly around that joint, or maybe it is a soft tissue injury in itself. So we can go directly to the soft tissues in this case as well to help address how that tissue is functioning. Now, normally when we have a soft tissue injury, what will be happening is that those tissues are going to heal in a patchwork so that they're not as organized as once they were when they started in a healthy manner. So we can help this process along to ensure that the tissues still glide well over one another and still function well in the way that they should, and have the ability to get to their full length that they should, as well as the overall balance of the tissues around that joint. The reason we start with the joint itself is because it can impact the quality of the tissues around that joint and the balance of our ability to use those tissues. So if my joint is off position, this is affecting the musculature that's coming into that joint and controlling it. So we want to make sure that, again, we address the joint first and then we look at the soft tissues next, because that could directly impact the quality of those soft tissues in a big way. So start with the joint, second we look at the soft tissues. Now this is going to be things like looking at the actual self-myofascial release techniques that we can do. So we could use a softball, lacrosse ball, foam roller, but one of my favorite tools is this mobility floss right here. Mobility floss we could use for a couple reasons. One, it's going to provide that self-myofascial release effect that we're looking for. Two, it's going to give us blood flow restriction. And three, that we could use it over joints specifically and get those tissues that are directly connecting into the capsule and impact the capsule at the same time. And with all of those together, that's a very powerful impact. There's a lot of therapy nowadays that are using blood flow restrictive processes because it draws increased growth hormones to that area and actually can improve the neurological connections to those tissues. So those are really two big benefits of using mobility floss in this process, and not just doing, using a ball and rolling techniques, which are still beneficial. So the goal, again, with addressing soft tissues is that we're restoring function to those tissues and a balance to those tissues overall. So I might be using that self-myofascial release to address the damaged tissues that were injured in that injury specifically, or I might be using the self-myofascial release to help restore balance to tissues that are overactive from trying to hold stability overall and keep a stable structure around the joint itself. So those are key pieces to understand, that when we're doing self-myofascial release, it can have multiple purposes in how I'm using it to help restore my body back to a better balance, so that the whole team is working together and not just pieces and parts, because that could be what's causing your pain to linger longer from the injury that you've had. And the third and final pillar is stability and strength. So stability is tapping into our neuromuscular connection to the tissues that control the joint. This is our opportunity to influence our movement patterns as a whole, how well we're moving, and make sure that everybody on the team is doing their job and carrying the load that they should, so that we're not compensating to create movement which is either keeping our pain or going to cause pain further down the road here. So we need to ensure that we restore as much normal movement based off of the design of our body, so we understand the function of the joints, the movement that it has, and the tissues that are controlling it, the movement that they should be generating. Well, that's going to help make sure that our team is working together to create movement as a whole, and that nobody is overworking or having issues because of that. Now, there are a few nuances to stability that we really need to understand that will feed the overall function of our body. With our arms and our legs, the stability that we see through those are very similar, and it's through torsion. So torsion is the combination of a torque, think ball and socket, right? Our hip and our shoulder are both ball and socket, so we have rotational force in the form of torque, and some other friction force or grip force that is opposing that torque. When we have those two opposing forces, that rotational force is the torsion that goes through that system of the leg and through the arm to create stability. If there's an impacted area through the system of the leg or arm, it's impacting our torsion, our ability to stabilize the arm or the leg. So depending on where your injury is that you're trying to recover, that could be greatly impacting the stability of that system, which in turn is going to impact the stability of your core, When we look at the stability of our core, this is our ability to organize and stabilize the spinal column in a manner that's effective. Now that could be a neutral spinal column depending on the situation, a flexed spinal column in global flexion, an extended spinal column in global extension. There's options there, but the key is that we have that ability to actually stabilize and control what our spinal column is doing. The problem with lacking stability at the system of our arm or our leg is that it cyclically impacts our ability to control our spinal column. So if my legs are injured, I have an issue controlling and stabilizing my spinal column directly related to my instability at my legs. I have to compensate there. It will pull me into a compensation. And vice versa. If I have an issue organizing or controlling my spinal column because of an injury there, it's going to impact the stability of the system outward. So we need to understand that stability, a comprehensive stability, is the torsion of our arms and legs plus that ability to organize and stabilize the spinal column. And that really feeds into our movement and how powerful and strong we can be and how controlled and healthy our joints will be overall. So that is that third and final piece. And when you put all three of these together, that is where you give your body the best opportunity to truly heal and recover from old injuries that you might have. Again, are you going to heal 100%? That is hard to say. But if you consistently follow this pattern and use these pillars, I'm willing to bet that you get a lot closer than you ever would if you didn't. All right, and there you have it, the exact formula you can use to fully resolve those lingering training aches and injuries that you've had from the past. Start with the joints, address those soft tissues, rebuild stability around the joints in a comprehensive manner that feeds your movement overall. If you like this video, make sure you let me know by clicking that big thumbs up down below, and take a moment to share this one with a friend. Maybe they're a gym buddy who's got a history of injuries that's impacting their training. Pass it along their way, show them some love. If you are somebody who has lingering injuries that you would like direct help fully resolving those, what I want you to do right now is drop down below in the description to fill out a coaching application and schedule a mobility blueprint call. This is our opportunity to get on a Zoom call together to, first of all, assess your mobility limitations and gather all the information I would need to tailor a program specifically to your needs. From there, I can lay out the full details of your program, what it would look like, the equipment you would need, the duration, the sessions that you'd be doing. Any questions you have around that, we could get clearly answered, including cost of the programming and how to get you moving in the right direction. So if that sounds good, drop down below, fill out that coaching application, and schedule that call right now so we can get you started. Last but not least, if you have not already, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine. And it does not get better than that. Welcome to the Stronghold Army. We'll see you next week.